This last type of UM that we offer is in a separate category because it doesn't require a license. We call it Simplified Unified Messaging. So one of the things that CallXpress is always focused on is message notification. You know, particularly for mobile people, you can't really process a message quickly if you don't know it's there. So we have a very powerful message notification engine. It includes the ability to dial out to numbers and pagers, various devices. You can have a list of up to 9 numbers, very, very flexible. Filters, so that you can only be notified of urgent messages or only messages of a certain type or only messages from a certain sender. And as an addition to that, we offer the ability to send out both email messages and SMS short text messages for notification. So I can configure my mailbox that whenever I get a voicemail to send me an email message telling me it's there. This was one of the ways we handled BlackBerry users in the early days when their devices weren't capable of playing voice messages on the phone. We would send them out an email, and they'd hit that click that link to that email and call in and get their message. As an option, you can set that email message that we send for notification to actually contain the voice message as an attachment. So what you end up with is 2 copies of the message. One still on CallXpress that you manage with the normal CallXpress tools, and a second over somewhere in email that they manage with the email tools. This is the only type of UM that gives you 2 copies of a message that have to be managed separately. And as a result, we do not charge you for this. So with CallXpress, this type of UM is free for one or all users. We don't license users on CallXpress, basic voicemail users. You can have as many as you want on the system, and every one of them can have this type of UM if you'd like. The pros and cons here are pretty simple. Less impact on the server and network. Very easy to support foreign email systems. If you have contractors or people that have email that's sort of outside your control, this is an ideal way to go. And the downside is it is the least feature-rich. You do have to sort of modify how you handle messages because now you have 2 copies of messages. If you look at our platform, one of the things we've done over the years, and not just in unified messaging, but in just about every area, is we've seen that the way the industry is going, solutions in the enterprise are going to be more and more about connectivity. Certainly, we've always connected the voicemail to the telephone system. Early on, we realized we had to put it on the local area network for a number of solutions. We wanted to connect it to the fax world. And then, slowly but surely, it's become apparent that communications-enabled business processes are going to be very important in the next few years. So starting almost 10 years ago, we started building CallXpress software with integration layers. What that means is we can hook to lots of different types of telephone systems because we've abstracted that integration out to a layer of software that can be programmed very easily to talk to anything. We've abstracted the groupware layer. So we can not only connect to any email system, but a single CallXpress can connect to multiple email systems of the same type or of different types. And then we've also extracted all the user interfaces. Certainly as a voicemail company that's been around this long, we started out with a simple DTMF interface where you could call in and get your voicemail. But that's grown today to support all the devices that users might want to access their messages with and all the different types of interfaces available on those devices. So we have a speech interface where users can call in and do all their message management and call management using a speech interface, and that helps you meet some of the laws that are being deployed in the states about hands-free access. We have a web interface where users can set up their mailbox and access their messages through the web. Because if you're portable, sometimes the web is the easiest tool to get to. We certainly have a number of desktop interfaces and a number of mobile interfaces, and the mobile interfaces are speech, DTMF, and data. There's a number of things we do to abstract that layer. And all of those wrap around the core applications that we provide, and those core applications are where we spend all of our time. These are rock-solid applications. They've been under development for almost 25 years. So call processing, voice messaging, unified messaging, fax, personal assistant, notification, all of those are in the core, and then all those abstraction layers let us communicate to the outside world. And this is not a process that's slowing down or stopping now. We could easily talk about how we need to connect this same functionality to other systems in your enterprise. Perhaps your customer database, or your office communication server, your presence and availability applications. This goes on, and that's our intention, is to use CallXpress as the voice engine for all of these types of solutions. So if we look at all this information and we talk about, as a customer, if you're evaluating unified messaging, what is it you really need to be doing? And certainly, the nice demos and the brochures with the screenshots are all part of that process. But there's really 5 areas you want to look at and make sure that you're covering as you do these evaluations. And the first one's compliance. Oddly enough, there's these legal issues now that have to come into this play, and you need to make sure you don't lock yourself in to an architecture that might not work for you now or a few years down the road. If you don't have the flexibility to change those architectures, you really are sort of hoping that the way this turns out, the particular type that you're going to buy works. Every other vendor is going to lock you into one type of unified messaging architecture, which means if that's not the type for you down the road, you're going to be back out shopping again, probably sooner than you like. Even beyond the legal issues, the confidentiality issues are important. And once again, those different architectures give you different levels of control over how confidential you need those messages to be. Whether they need to be confidential because of your industry, healthcare and education, or because of the nature of your business. No matter what, you want to make sure you have that covered as you look at the different types of systems you might purchase. Configuration is important. If you buy a system that's made by a phone vendor, they spend all their time making it work with that phone system. As long as you never leave that phone system, you'll probably be okay. But if that phone system changes from growth, acquisition, and IP migration, you might suddenly find yourself with a system that's really not as functional as you'd like. So take a look at your architecture today, pick something that fits that architecture, but keep in mind that architecture changes as you go forward, and make sure whatever system you choose has the flexibility to match those changes. Then let's look at capacity, both from what you can get today and at what you can grow to, but also how it affects the other solutions you have, how it affects the load on your server, your email server, your network. And in some environments where there's data connections out to remote sites, this gets to be a fairly complex process, which we'd be happy to talk through with you in terms of how to design an implementation that doesn't overload any of your capacities at all, plus gives you nice margin for growth. We all hope to grow as companies, and it'd be nice to be planning for that up front. And then, of course, last, and I don't even hardly need to put this one on the list because everyone looks at this one, is cost. But keep in mind, focus on the cost of ownership in an ongoing way, not just the acquisition cost. So there's certainly an acquisition cost, and you want to control that, but that's the really visible cost. There are other costs, like how complex is this system to maintain? How well can you distribute the administration over this system over multiple sites if that's your environment? How many licenses do you have to buy for your groupware package to deploy that maybe you're really not thinking of right now? A lot of those systems require a groupware license for every voicemail user. Now, a lot of your users have those licenses, but it's a good chance a lot of them don't. So the cost, capacity, configuration, confidentiality, and compliance are kind of the areas where you can build yourself a checklist to make sure you're covering everything, not just the nice brochure, the screenshot, and not just the nice demo. We can all do that. That's actually something the entire industry has figured out how to do now. But some of these other areas which aren't quite as clear are every bit as important in your consideration in terms of what you're going to do to employ somebody to give you a nice unified messaging solution. Well, I'd certainly like to thank everybody both for coming and joining us, and also for participating